Rangatira, who signed Te Tiriti o Waitangi on the 4th of March 1840. Now if you think about that, it's less than a month after its first signing at Waitangi, 6th of Feb 1840. Brought down to here and signed here by 17 chiefs, 16 of whom were Ngāti Pāwa, and one who was Ngāpuhi. One Ngāpuhi chief signed the Tiriti o Waitangi here at Karaka Bay. And their names are on this plaque over here. So, Wiremu Hoite no Ngāti Pāwa. Wiremu Hoite was one of the Ngāti Pāwa signatories. Ruinga, Paora, Hakopa, Hohepa, Mohi, Te Awa, Pātara, Anaru, Te Tapuru, Enoka, Waitangi, Te Tītaha, Hinaki, Korokoro, Kahukoti, and Keka. Now next to their names, it says which tribe they were from, or they represented. So, out of the 17, 17. Oh, I can count. Out of 17 names here, 16 of them belong to my people, the people of this area. Now, what's interesting about this is that Ngāti Pāwa are the only tribe that signed the tiriti, or the treaty, on the shores of the Waitemata Harbour. We are the only tribe. Yet Auckland Council recognised 19 mana whenua in Auckland. Auckland Council recognises, or they've stipulated who they recognise, and they recognise 19 iwi as being tangata whenua and mana whenua over the whole Auckland region. So if we think about Auckland region, that stretches from Pukekohe in the south to Wellsford. So within that space there are Auckland Council recognises 19 mana whenua. Well, from our perspective as Ngāti Pāwa, for this place here, the other 18 iwi do not have any rights to this land here. And this is part of our argument, because this proves our fact that, hey, in 1840, we were the only tribe that signed Te Tiriti o Waitangi on the Waitemata Harbour. Not even our neighbouring tribe next door, Ngāti Whātu o Rake, signed the treaty on the Waitemata Harbour. Yet they have rights over the America's Cup and everything. Hey, but the America's Cup runs out here, on our waters, on our part of the Waitemata Harbour. So these are some of the injustices that happen to mana whenua. It's good for you to know. It's good for you to know. So 17 chiefs here. Now the one Ngāpuhi chief comes from a Ngāpuhi hapu, which I said before, Te Hinaki was a fourth cousin to Hongihika, the Ngāpuhi chief with the Ngāti Pāwa paramount chief. They were fourth cousins. And that's because we, as a people, Ngāti Pāwa, can also whakapapa back to this hapu of Ngāpuhi, Ngai Tawake. So the chief here, Korokoro, belonged to the Ngāpuhi hapu Ngai Tawake. Now Ngai Tawake is quite a prominent hapu within Ngāpuhi. You have Ngai Tawake who are coastal, and then you have Ngai Tawake who live inland. Ka pai? Now, it's my understanding also that he accompanied the treaty, the tiriti, and the Crown agents at that time. He accompanied them taking the treaty around. What's also important is that you have to understand that Ngāti Pāwa, the 16 chiefs that signed on the 4th of March 1840, did not sign the Treaty of Waitangi. They did not sign the English version. They signed the Māori version, which is Te Tiriti or Waitangi. Understand the difference between the two, because the Māori, when you translate the Māori version into English, it reads differently to the English version. So our ancestors did not sign the treaty here. And that billboard, or that board up at the top there, it says, sorry my gum, it says that the treaty was signed here. It wasn't. The treaty was never signed here. Te Tiriti o Waitangi, the Māori version, was signed here. Understand that. And that was the document which the majority of Māori signed, both female and male. But for here, for Ngāti Pāwa, only males signed. Further south, in Nelson and around the South Island, and in Wellington there, prominent females signed Te Tiriti and the treaty on behalf of their hapu and iwi. But here, only, we're a male-centric tribe, sorry. We are. And that's a part of being Tainui and Te Aroa. We always trace this thing back to our male lineage, because it's a part of our belief that our power or our mana derives from our male lines. Now my mother or my great-grandmother, shut up. But yeah, in theory we are a very male-centric iwi. But we don't forget to acknowledge our female. So those are the names here. What's also interesting about these names is that some of them dropped their Māori names, and so when they signed Te Tiriti o Waitangi in 1840, they used their Christian names, which they had adopted. So half of these men, like Ruinga, is a Māori name. Waitangi, Te Tapuru, Inaki, Te Tītaha, Korokoro, Kahukoti, Keka, those are Māori names. However, there are other names like Wiramu, William, Paula, Paul, Hakopa. He saw the ladder stretching from earth to heaven and the angels coming up and down. Who's that? Jacob. Hakopa is Jacob. Pohepa, Joseph. Mohi, Moses. Pātara, Butler. Now that tupuna took the name of a well-known missionary of that time, the Reverend Butler. And so here, what our ancestors done is that they took on the names of the missionaries or the clergy that baptized them. So Andrew's baptizing Andrew. I baptize you, Andrew. Yeah. And so that's how a lot of our Māori names became Pākehawhite or European, anglicised. Ka pai? So yeah, it shows you also a transition from traditional Māori or Māori names into European names, anglicised. Sounds like exercise. Ka pai? So that's what I usually get is I get the students to bring the piece of paper and a pencil and they just rub. Yeah. And it's beautiful, comes up beautiful on the papers. And it's also a good reminder of when you come to the 6th of Feb, etc. But what I and the iwi would really love is for schools to maybe hold a celebration, especially our Manaia Kalani schools to hold a celebration on the 4th of March every year to educate our tamariki that you don't need to go all the way to Waitangi to go visit a place where the Te Tiriti was signed. It's right here. Ka pai? Okay, now there are a couple of significant sites here for us as Ngāti Pāoa, but this is where our rangatira signed Te Tiriti o Waitangi. Ka pai? Which document?
Te Tiriti.
And which document didn't they sign?
They didn't sign English.
Or the version? Yeah. Which version?
The Maori version.
And which version didn't they sign?
The English one.
Kia ora. So, I was asked the question, why here? I was asked the question as we were coming down, why here? Why did Ngāti Pāoa sign Te Tiriti o Waitangi here and not further on down at where our past site was? Why did they choose here? Well, you have to understand that this is the mouth of the Tāmaki River. We are standing at the mouth. Over there is Waiheke. And if you go around, you go down into the western coast shores of the Hauraki Gulf where Ngāti Pāoa lived as well. And also if you carry on down to Miranda, Ngātea, Piako River, down into Pairoa, that's where our other chiefs were. And if you look north here, our chiefs from North Coast, from Devonport, Takapuna, and the shore could come here, as well as our rangatira from Tiritiri Matangi Island, Kawau Island, and all the other islands are in here. So this place was a central place for our people from the north to come to, from our people who lived here in Tāmaki, and also our people that lived out in the Gulf. Ka pai? Does that answer the question? And because the mode of transport at that time for Māori was waka, not waka. When I saw people walking up the hill this morning backwards, I thought, oh yeah, that's this. Māori don't do that. We do this like we paddle forward. We always go forward. Ka pai. So this is an important place for Ngāti Pāoa. But what it done also, what it showed was that Ngāti Pāoa held dominion over this part of Auckland. Because we didn't go into someone else's land and sign. We didn't go into Ngāti Whātua land and sign. We didn't go to our neighbours over in Howick and sign. We signed here. Funnily enough, they all went to Mangere. None of them came here, and none of them signed on the Waitemata. On this hill? Well, my ancestors never walked out. They paddled here. They came in this way. They didn't come in that way. Okay? And so for us as Ngāti Pāoa, the mouth of the river is the place known as Te Waio Taiki. The mouth, not the whole river. The river is now known as Waimakoia, but the mouth of the river is Te Waio Taiki. Ka pai, so does that explain now the difference between the two names of the river? One tribe acknowledging that it's Te Waio Taiki. Now here on this headland here, at the top was a pā site, and the name of that pā is Te Pane o Horoiwi, or Horoiwi's head. And this is also the place where the Tainui canoe came ashore, right here, in 1350, in the 14th century. And Horoiwi was also a passenger on that canoe. And he looked up there and he named that headland. He named that headland after his head, te pane, the head. In my dialect, a head is, we refer to it as pane. In the northern dialect, it's mātenga. In other dialects, it's upoko, māhunga. But in our dialect, it's pane. So this headland here in the far side up top, I think that's Achilles Point. Yeah, Achilles Point. Okay, so the Māori name for Achilles Point is Te Pane o Horoi. Now out here on the low tide, you can see a reef. Have any of you seen the reef out here on the low tide? Well, there's a reef that goes around like that. Pawa, the ancestor, his wife was Tukutuku. The second wife, sorry. The second wife was Tukutuku. Her father was Taharua, and his father was Tamatera. Pawa's wife's grandfather was made to drown on the rocks out here, on the reef that goes around here. So, on the low tide, you can just see it's just submerged underneath here. And on the low tide, you can actually walk out to the reef here. That reef, or the flats, is known as Te Papa o Tamatera, where Tamatera was made to drown. So they took him out there, they weighed him down with rocks, and on the incoming tide, he was gone. So Te Papa o Tamatera is the reef around here. The island in front of us here, anyone know the English name?
Brown?
Brown's Island.
Yeah.
Anyone know the Māori name? Motu Korea. Can everyone say Korea? It's spelled exactly like Korea or Korea. Motu Korea. Korea. North Korea, South Korea, Motu Korea. Over there, Rangi Toto. Te rangi toto ngia ai te ihu o Tamatu Tapua. Next to it is Motu Tapu Island. Now that name, Motu Tapu, was brought from Polynesia to here. So it's not a Aotearoa original name. It's a name that our ancestors brought with them. And so throughout the Pacific, there are many Motu Tapu. There's Motu Tapu Island in Samoa. There's Motu Tapu in French Polynesia. There are Motu Tapus all throughout the Pacific. Kapai, the island over here where the pine trees are. Can you see those pine trees off in the distance? Anyone know the name of that island? Maitahi, Motu Ihe. Motu Ihe. Okay, and the full name for Motu Ihe is Te Motu o Ihenga. Ihenga was the man who came on the Te Arawa canoe and who first sighted Lake Roto Iti in the Rotorua districts. And he named that lake after himself. Te Roto Iti I kite ai e Ihenga. The small lake which Ihenga saw. Kapai, now he loved that island, Ihenga. So he named that island after himself. Ihenga's Island. Ngāti Pawa have two past sites. Not that way, Ngāti Pawa have two past sites on Motuihe. Not Motuihe, okay, because there's no ch sound in the Māori language. Remember that? There's no ch sound. So what people have become complacent in is using English sounds and using them on Māori words. So the English sounds, no, do not go with Māori words. Motu ihe, not motu i. Kapai? Now there are two Ngāti Pawa past sites, and they are both at this end of the island, the southern end, and they are up on the higher ground. Our neighbouring tribe, Te Kawerauamaki, have one past site down at the lower end of Motuihe Island. We didn't live there at the same time, you have to understand that. Te Kawerauamaki lived there before us, and we came later. Kapai? Now, what's the island behind Motuihe? Waiheke. Everyone say Waiheke. that is the jewel in the crown for Ngāti Pāoa. It's Waiheke. Okay, it holds very special significance for Ngāti Pāoa, but like I think I showed you in the map, the Golden Triangle for Ngāti Pāoa, all of this area here is included in that, as well as these islands. Now, Ngāti Pāoa, we do not claim Motutapu Island. We don't claim that island. That's our neighbours, Ngaitai. We claim Rakino, we claim Te Pōnui Island. All the other islands at the eastern end of Waiheke, we claim as ours. Ka pai? Now, Ngāti Pāoa also had a pā site at Freeman's Bay. So if you know where Point Erin is, and if you know where the tepid bars are, and if you can imagine Freeman's Bay 200 years ago being a shallow lying bay and no Victoria Park here, that's not Albert Park, it's Victoria Park. Victoria Park, nothing here. Well, it used to be a shallow bay, okay, and boats could not come in there. So it was a prime defensive spot for Ngāti Pāoa. And down in Freeman's Bay and Victoria Park and Point Erin, Ngāti Pāoa used to dry all of their fish. And a favourite fish of Ngāti Pāoa people back then in the 1800s was dogfish or shark, dog shark. Dog shark? Our fish, yeah. And our people would fish for that fish in between Tiritiri Matangi Island and Army Bay. And the channel through there was a favourite spot for dogfish. And so our people had a pā site at Tiritiri Matangi called Papakura. That was the name of our pā. And so hence, all of this area here is very important for our people as Ngāti Pāoa. But hopefully what you take away from today is that there is history in every single rock, every single headland, every single flat, beach, shore, bay. These are sites of significance for us as we come into Piri. Over there at Music Point, that is called Te Naupata. Music Point is called Te Naupata. Ka pai. Now that's about it. But what I do want you to imagine, lastly, is that imagine all of the canoes coming in here on the 4th of March, 1840. Imagine what our people would have been doing along this beachfront here. They would have been arguing, debating, whether they are in favour of signing to Tiriti, whether they are not in favour of signing to Tiriti. There would have been dance, there would have been feasting, there would have been celebration, as well as mourning those who weren't here to see that sign, mourning those who passed in 1821 down at Mokoia Park. That's what would have been happening here. Nō reira, I'm going to finish off there. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Over to you, boss.